Hi, this is our model today. Her name is Goma. Painting fur or hair can be tricky, but it's actually not that difficult once you know what to look for. The most common issue I see is trying to do too much. It is true that my cat and perhaps myself have thousands of hair strings, but if you try to paint each and every hair string, it will take you forever unless you are painting Charlie Brown. Hi, this is Eric from Cafe Watercolor. It's been a while. I took a bit of a break because I was feeling burned out. No pun intended, but I was feeling burned out mentally. But after that, we got the hottest heat wave that Pacific Northwest has ever seen. So I wasn't able to paint. Well, I'm back making a new video. So today, let's talk about painting fur or hair. They are very similar, but I'll focus on fur this time. Now, if you think about it, we are using paintbrush, which is made with hair, either natural or synthetic, to paint hair. Now, that sounds very natural, but it's tricky if you don't know what to look for. Without a proper understanding of what makes fur looks like fur, it can look very stiff in your painting. So here are a few things you want to think about next time you paint a furry animal. Number one is about volume, not number. Yes, a cat or a dog has thousands of hair, but that doesn't mean we paint every single one of them, because let's face it, we can't see all of them and count all of them anyways. What you need to look for and recreate in your painting is volume. One hair strand is almost invisible, but a large volume of hair together will form a structure, and it is much easier to show volume with structure. Like the tree video I shared before, think of a simple structure first, then give it a bit more detail and textures, and you can easily give the illusion of fur. Number two, varying your edges. This is more of a personal preference, but I personally like to have both wet on wet soft edges and dry brush textures to interpret fur. If it is all wet on wet, then you might have a hard time suggesting the hair strings. If you only use dry brushing, the painting can look very stiff and will be harder to create a soft volume of the fur, unless you are painting a hedgehog. And number three, painting with the direction it grows. Fur has direction. It grows outward. So when you paint along the direction of the fur from where it starts growing and where it ends, you give the illusion of fur. This is a very natural way to paint with a paintbrush. It almost feels like you are stroking the fur, which is quite comforting actually. One thing I would also like to add is to start practice with something simple. A small hamster is probably easier than a dog, and a typical horse is easier than a zebra. A more complex form and structure requires more solid drawing, and a complex pattern will throw your sense of value off way easier than a single color fur. Okay, I'm going to give a very quick demo about painting a fur ball, and then we will take that idea and paint a full pet portrait. Okay, let's do it. Okay, so let me do a really quick demo on how I usually interpret a hair and how do I simplify those. So we'll start with a sphere. Let's not worry about any hair or fur or anything, just a simple sphere. Okay, so with that sphere, assuming the lighting is from, let's say here, okay, let's say the lighting is a little bit from the front and on the side. So we got this kind of like a top-down lighting that's a little bit to the side. So we'll preserve the light here and we'll just paint the shadow here instead. Okay, and maybe I'll just give a little bit of cast shadow. Okay, it's a very simple sphere. Okay, now I'll soften that edge real quick with a nice kind of damp brush here. Okay, we got ourselves a very simple sphere. Now, just gonna mix a little bit more color now without going back to get more water. Okay, so a little bit thicker paint, and we can have maybe like a, like a core shadow, a form shadow, something like that, and maybe a little bit of a contact shadow down here. So something very simple. Okay, this is not a render of a sphere, so I'm just doing it very, very quickly. Okay, now That's a sphere for you, right? Without thinking about fur or any texture on it. It's just a very simple sphere. Now, let's take that idea and create another sphere. But this time, imagine their fur growing out. Okay, so this is like a fur ball. Now, I don't really have a reference, so just bear with me as I try to imagine this. So let's say we have a fur growing out from all over the place. So we got a little bit of hair here, a bit of hair. Now I'm just gonna indicate some of those hair growing out or something. Okay. So that same thing, light coming from top a little bit to the right. And let's just do the same thing here. Now I'll start with like a first wash. Okay. Instead, this time I will pre-wet this area first. And I will go in and paint this wet onto wet along with the direction of the fur, like so. Okay. Again, I don't have a reference, so I'm just doing it out of my imagination. Imagine this is a fur ball. Okay. Now I'll connect that to a cast shadow. Now the cast shadow will be a little bit more, quote unquote fuzzy. So I'll use the side of the brush, give it a little bit of the dry brushing. Okay. Don't have to overdo it, just a little hint of that it should do. Okay. So here we got a little bit of fur. Now there's some fur on the top, but maybe they are on the light side, so I don't have to worry about those right now. Now, grabbing some cobalt black, again, thicker paint. And we can do a little bit more wet onto wet, with just the tip of our brush. Now the purpose is to give it some sense of layering. But the same thing, so the one single stroke going to the direction of the form shadow, we give it just a little bit sense of texture, a little bit of contact shadow down here, broken it up a little bit. Already you're going to see that this feels a little bit like hair, something like that. Okay, and a little bit of dry brushing on the side, very lightly, just do that. Okay, so that little bit of dry brushing gives some sense of some hair strain and things like that. Okay, and then now there's something that we can do that can make this even more convincing, is that we can give it a little bit of the background. Now for the sphere, we don't really have to do a background, but let's do that anyways. Okay, let's do that here. We give it a background. And now, because we painted this negative space, that brings out the form of the sphere. Okay? Now we can do the same thing here for our fur ball. A little bit of dry brushing going in here, like that. Preserve a little bit of this kind of fuzzy, rough edges. The rest of it, we can just fill that space in. Okay, simple enough, right? It's the same thing. Is start from a sphere, and the lighting is the same, but we got our sphere and our fur ball. Okay, I like to call it fur ball. Sounds kind of funny. Okay, anyways, so let's take that idea, do something just a tiny little bit more complex. Let's do a hamster. So let's do this here. So we'll start with some sort of like a sphere here for the body, and then let's do another sphere for the head. Give it a little bit of the ear. This is going to be very rough, okay? This is not a demo on painting a hamster. Okay, but here's an eye and the little nose right here. Okay, now let's define the silhouette just a little bit more. Okay, here going down like so. Okay, something like that. Okay, now the lighting, let's assume the lighting is from the top down. Okay, let's just make this a little bit simpler. So anything underneath here is going to be dark. Underneath the head is going to be dark. Okay, and a little bit dark down here. Okay, so it's from top down, but also a little bit more, a little bit more from the front. Okay, so let's do that. Now let's try to add a little bit more color this time, but it's a white fur hamster, so we don't really need to focus too much on the color. Just make things a little bit more fun. Okay, so a little bit cool color, cerulean blue, a little bit of alizarin crimson, and let's just do that. Okay. Oh, forgot. Let's pre-wet some of the area first. Okay, so right here, and maybe down here. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Got a little bit of dirty water on it. Doesn't really matter. So. Okay. Now the fur on this one is shorter than our fur ball here, so you're not going to see like a crazy amount of long hair here, but still we can just give it a little sense of that. Okay, so a little bit too cold. Let me just add a little bit of warm color to neutralize that a little bit. Okay, so again, think about where the lighting is, and we'll just paint the dark shadow. Okay. And use a little bit of carmine. Give a little bit of pink on the ear. Pink on the ear here, and a little bit of nose here. Okay. Look at that, we got ourselves a little cute hamster. Okay, now let's add a little bit more dark here. Burnt umber, cobalt black, whatever color you use, as long as it's dark enough. And we'll just paint the eye here. Okay, it's pretty much just 2 dots. Okay, and we'll make some fur a little bit darker, just like our sphere. Okay, our fur ball, we got a little bit of form shadow, and we have some hair layering on top of that too, so I can actually wait for it to dry and give it a little bit of hard edge here and there. Okay, and now a little bit of dark down here for the nostril, and you can have a little bit of dry brush. I mean, we already have a little bit on the side here. Okay, and here we do that. Here we go. Got a little hamster. Now let's just make a quick background. I'm just gonna grab whatever color here. Okay, and now same thing for the hairball. We start from the top where the light is, and we just paint some negative space here. Okay, and very quickly give it a little bit of the sense of fur for the silhouette, and also we can kind of adjust the shape of the mouth. Actually, the hamster. Sorry. A little hamster here. Okay, and we can actually have the background connect with the dark here. And just add a tiny little bit of more dark here just to give it a little bit more sense of depth. I mean, as it starts to dry, start to lighten up a little bit too much. So we can add a little bit more depths here. Anyways, yep, I think that's pretty much it. Again, this is a very simple exercise, very simple demo. So we start from a primitive, like a sphere, and we have grow some hair out of it, but retaining the overall lighting and the sense of structure by maintaining the overall value, but just add some fur and texture. And we take that as an idea. So sphere here, lighting coming from above. So it's kind of like the same thing here, except it's a little bit more complex. We grew a little bit of ear, adding an eye and so on. But the same thing sort of apply here. So again, this is a very, very simple exercise. So I'm not spending a lot of time trying to paint the hamster, but take that idea, and when you are painting your own cat and dog or whatever it is, you can very easily give it some sense of fur and hair very easily like this, instead of trying to paint hundreds and thousands of hair like that. You're trying to keep doing this all the time. Okay, now this does gives a nice texture, but if this is all you do, you lose a little bit sense of volume and the sense of lost and found edges. That's what makes the watercolor really interesting. Okay, hope this is helpful for you. So instead of trying to look at everything and try to copy it over, it is more important to know what to look for and do just enough to interpret it. Now let's take that basic idea and do a pet portrait. I know it's a huge leap, but with enough practice, you can do it too. Before we start though, if you like my content, please give it a like and subscribe. Ring the bell icon so you won't miss out any more video like this one. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so let's take a look at this painting. So first of all, I'm using a small paper. This paper is around 10 by 7, so it's quite a small paper. And I like to use small paper sometimes because it will kind of force you not to do too much detail, and it's easier for you to look at the whole picture. So we start off with a line drawing as always. And right now I'm using a dull 4B pencil, just trying to get the overall gesture of the cat, the overall structure, and try to align everything. Now I'm eyeballing most of it. I'm not drawing a crazy structure, trying to get everything super three-dimensional. But this is a pet portrait, not a human portrait, so it can be a little bit more forgiving. So the front paw down there. And once we get the overall size and placement that we wanted, we can go ahead and switch out to a mechanical pencil, like what I'm doing right now. It's a 4B mechanical pencil, so it is dark enough that it will definitely leave a mark, but at the same time it's pretty soft, so if I really need to erase it, it won't leave as much mark, especially if you don't draw too hard, carve into the paper, it should be fine. So her name is Goma. She is one of the 2 cats that we adopted last year. She's the older cat. I actually painted the younger one in one of my other videos. So she is actually the mom of the other cat, the younger cat. And they have very different personality. When she just moved in, she is quite shy and she's a lot more anxious, so she will hid under the bed for days before it's comfortable enough to come out and roaming around the house. So now she is a lot more comfortable around the house. She's very, very sweet. When I try to pet her, she'll actually kiss me, lick me, and she will like rub her head against me. So we'll start out by just wetting the paper. Now there's a little bit of blue color into it. That's totally fine. When it's dry, it's almost going to be invisible. So I wet the whole paper, and now I'm mixing a light value. So this is the first wash, the color of the light. So let's not worry about any of the hair and any fur, trying to create texture or things like that. We're just trying to create a basic light. So wet onto wet, I paint in the different warm and cool light values. And try to relax during this stage, because even if you paint into something that you were meant to leave it white, when it dries, it's going to end up a lot lighter. And once you paint in the middle value and the dark value, this light value is almost going to disappear. So try to stay relaxed, leave out a little bit of white if you can, but just trying to get a nice clean first wash. So now the first wash is pretty much done. I start to paint the second layer right on top of it. It's still quite moist, as you can see. Any shape I paint is spread out quite a bit. But as long as your mixture is drier than your paper, you're not going to get cauliflower edges. You're just going to get some soft shape like these. So right now I'm trying to look at where should I paint the secondary value, the middle value, and I start to paint it wet onto wet. Because if you look at the photo, if you kind of squint your eyes a little bit, there's a lot of soft shape blending into one another, even though you can still differentiate the different layers of value. What I'm trying to do right now is trying to give it a general differentiation between light and middle value. So this is what I'm doing right now. So if I can create some shape wet onto wet, that's great. But as you can see, there's also some dry brushing. So there's both wet on wet and wet on dry. So these lost and found edges are what makes it interesting. So as I continue painting, I decided to just lose the edge underneath. So the cat is on the cat tree, but I don't want to define the cat tree as much. So one big temptation is trying to leave out too much detail, especially when you're painting a cat like this, where there's dark and light patterns. Try to look at it and think about where the light is coming from and try to treat the whole painting that way. There's some darker fur in the light area, and there's some light fur in the dark area, so it's very easy to get confused. So it's very important for you to think about where the light is actually coming from and treat the painting as a whole. So now I'm starting to paint the dark value. So I start with the eye, because it's definitely one of the darker area. So I'm using a smaller brush, trying to get that shape down. And I start to paint some darker marks and trying to connect that. Now, this part is a little bit scary, because soon as you paint the dark value down, you know that there's no turning back. So you really need to concentrate on where you want to paint and where the dark value is, and still think about where the light is coming from, so you preserve the light area as needed. So I painted a few dark marks, and I use a damper brush, a little bit thinner paint, and just bring those paint out, so you get a nice soft transition from dark to light, dark to medium value. And as you paint, your brush will get a little bit flattened, especially if you use a softer hair brush. I'm using a Sculptor Versatile, which is a synthetic Kolinsky brush, but the hair is still a little bit softer. So as you paint, it's going to bend, and some hair is going to come out split. But that is actually a good thing if you want to give it a little bit of the texture. So sometimes I would just use that to make some dry brush mark, and it will bring out the texture of the fur. So I don't always try to make my brush into a single point. Okay, so now I'm going back and start to fill in some middle values, because it's quite a bit of a jump between my middle value and a dark value, so I want something kind of in between, so a little bit of glazing will help. So as I paint, I will squeeze out the moisture on my brush, clean my brush first and squeeze out the moisture, and do a little bit of lifting while it is still wet, while it is still moist. This will give you just a little bit more opportunity to lift and get a little bit of light back and also create some more sense of fur. So we got a pretty good range of value now. Now it's the matter of time to push the dark a little bit in some of the area and really try to bring this together. Skip that full range of contrast. So now I'm using a synthetic brush. It's called a Perla. It's a harder hair brush, and I will mix darker value and start to really go into the dark and separate the different layers of fur. So especially at her neck area, you can see there's maybe around from head to neck, there's like 3 layers of fur that I'm trying to interpret in my painting. So underneath one of the layer, I'll add a little bit of dark. And so now you feel that there's some layers of fur going on here. And you can also tell the volume of the hair, nice and soft and fluffy. So now with the dark value in, you can really start to see the form and structure of the cat. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start adding in some background, because I do believe the background is going to help a lot in this painting. Because when you look at the photo, the light is coming from the window on the left, and because the cat is also turned a little bit, so she's almost kind of backlit. So I pre-wet the background first, and then I leave a little bit of gap between the background and the cat. So we got this kind of glowing sense of fur going on the side. This not only gives the sense of fuzziness, it also helps the sense of lighting as well. So give that background and the light pops out a lot more, and it also just give it an overall sense of atmosphere. Even though it is indoor, give it some background. It really helps the sense of lighting and sense of space, and you can see what a difference that made. Now the cat feels like it's resting in a space. Even though I didn't really give much definition in the background, it's just a solid color, the painting looks just a little bit more whole that way. So here I'm looking at the painting and squint my eyes looking at the photo, really trying to look at and see what else is needed. If some areas needs to be darkened, add a few more brushstrokes, then I will do that. But if not, then I'm not going to do too much. It's very important that you don't do too much at this stage. If the overall picture looks decent, if it's convincing that it have the sense of fur, then don't try to push for detail too much. Because if you add too much detail, it can actually start to flatten the painting. And that's not what you want here. So the contrast on her face, we want to add just a little bit more dark. And here we are pretty much done, but I'm using white gouache to get some of the light back, especially around the whisk area. We want some thin light whisk. These are really just tiny little bit of final touches. So again, don't go too far on those. Just a couple areas needed. Adding a little bit of value on her right ear, just to get a little bit more structure and value variation. And we are finished. I hope you like this finished painting, and I hope you enjoy this demo. I hope you enjoyed this video and now have a basic understanding of painting a furry animal. In the future, I might do a separate video talking about painting hair in portrait. If you would like to see more video, you can click here. If you're new here, you can click here to get my free Fast Track Watercolor PDF guide. I am Eric. I hope you have a wonderful day wherever you are. See you next time.